Okay, so picture this. I'm drowning. Not the oh my god, I accidentally stepped off the diving board kind of drowning. This was the giant ship sinking beneath me, icy water closing in, lungs screaming for air, kind of drowning. Not exactly a day at the beach, you know? The water was freezing, like someone had dumped a million ice cubes down my throat. Every breath was a struggle, every movement a desperate fight against the crushing weight of the ocean. The darkness was absolute, like being trapped in a black hole. The only light the faint, eerie glow of the sinking ship above me. Panic clawed at me, a primal fear that threatened to consume me. My heart hammered against my ribs. My lungs screamed for air. My limbs thrashed uselessly against the unforgiving water. I was sinking, 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 and no one was coming to save me. And as the icy water filled my lungs, as the darkness closed in, as the last vestiges of hope flickered and died, my mind drifted back to a childhood filled with sunshine and shadows, laughter and tears, love and neglect. I remembered the birthday parties, the ones where Emma, my perfect little sister, was always the center of attention. She'd be the one with the fancy cake, the mountain of presents, the adoring crowd singing "Happy Birthday" just for her. Me? I'd be the one in the corner, the one with the store-bought cupcakes, the single hastily wrapped gift, the one who was invisible. I remembered the school plays, the ones where Emma always got the lead role, the one with the spotlight, the applause, the adoration. Me. I'd be the one in the chorus, the one with the single line, the one who blended into the background, the one who was overlooked. I remembered the family vacations, the ones where Emma always got the window seat, the one with the view, the souvenirs, the special treatment. Me? I'd be the one in the middle seat, the one with the cramped legs, the forgotten luggage, the one who was an afterthought. And I remembered the countless little moments, the everyday interactions that chipped away at my self-worth, the ones that made me feel like I was less than, the casual comparisons, the subtle favoritism, the unspoken message that I was not enough. Emma's so talented, my mother would say, her voice filled with pride as Emma performed her latest piano recital, her fingers dancing across the keys, the notes filling the room with beautiful music. Me? I'd be the one sitting in the audience, my fingers tracing the worn keys of my own neglected piano, the music silent, the applause non-existent. Valeria, why can't you be more like Emma? My father would ask, his voice laced with disappointment as I brought home another average report card. My grades decent, but not exceptional. My efforts unnoticed. Emma, of course, would be the one with the straight A's, the glowing teacher's comments, the effortless perfection. And as I sank deeper into the icy depths, as the memories flooded my mind, as the last vestiges of life slipped away, I realized I wasn't just drowning in water. I was drowning in neglect, in indifference, in their love for Emma. And in that moment, as the darkness consumed me, as the cold embraced me, as the last breath escaped my lips, I made a promise to myself, a vow whispered into the unforgiving depths. If I ever get another chance, I swore, my voice a silent echo in the vastness of the ocean, I won't beg for their love. I'll make them regret losing me. Okay, so the cruise. It was supposed to be a dream vacation, a chance for our family to reconnect, to bond, to maybe finally see me. I know, I was probably setting myself up for disappointment. But hey, a girl can dream, right? The ship was like a floating palace, all gleaming chrome, plush carpets, and sparkling chandeliers. There were multiple pools, gourmet restaurants, a casino, a spa, and even a mini golf course. It was the kind of place where you could easily forget about the real world, about your problems, about your family. Except, of course, when your family was the problem. Emma naturally was in her element. She'd claimed the best cabin, the one with the balcony and the ocean view, while I was stuck in a windowless room that felt more like a closet than a stateroom. She'd spent the first day lounging by the pool, sipping exotic cocktails and flirting with the cute bartender, while I wandered around the ship feeling like a lost puppy, trying to find my place, my purpose. My parents, as usual, were oblivious to my struggles. They were too busy doting on Emma, praising her natural beauty, her infectious charm, her her everything. "Emma, darling," my mother would gush, "you look absolutely stunning in that swimsuit. You should be a model." "Emma, sweetheart," my father would say, "you're such a natural with people. You could charm the birds out of the trees." Me? I was just there, the invisible one, the afterthought, the one who blended into the background, the one who was, well, let's just say I wasn't exactly winning any Miss Congeniality awards. I tried to connect with them, to join their conversations, to be part of the family, but it was like trying to break into a private club where I wasn't a member. They'd smile politely, nod vaguely, and then go back to their Emma-centric world, leaving me feeling like an outsider, an intruder, a, a ghost. I even tried to participate in the family activities, the karaoke night, the bingo tournament, the synchronized swimming competition. Don't ask. But it was always the same. Emma would steal the show, my parents would beam with pride, and I'd be left feeling like, well, like I was drowning. And as the days passed, as the ship sailed further and further away from shore, as the sense of isolation grew stronger, I realized the cruise wasn't a dream vacation. It was a nightmare, a gilded cage, a floating prison, a, a constant reminder that I was invisible. And as the storm clouds gathered on the horizon, as the waves grew choppy, as the ship started to creak and groan, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. Not just about the impending storm, but about the storm that was brewing inside me, the one that threatened to consume me, the one that was, well, let's just say it was about to make landfall. Okay, so the storm, it wasn't just a little rain and wind. Oh no. This was a full-blown Poseidon adventure situation, with waves the size of skyscrapers, winds that could peel the paint off a battleship, and lightning that looked like it was trying to split the sky in two. The ship, our luxurious floating palace, was now a creaking, groaning, tilting mess. People were screaming, running, slipping, and sliding all over the place. Champagne flutes were shattering, gourmet meals were splattering, and designer dresses were, well, let's just say they weren't looking so designer anymore. I remember the initial shock, the disbelief, the "this can't be happening, this is just a bad dream" feeling. But then the alarm started blaring, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, and the reality of the situation hit me like a rogue wave. We were sinking, fast. Panic erupted. People were scrambling for lifeboats, pushing, shoving, trampling each other in a desperate bid for survival. It was like a scene from a disaster movie, except this time, I wasn't watching it from the safety of my couch. I was in it, right in the middle of the chaos, the fear, the utter pandemonium. I remember searching for my family, my eyes scanning the panicked crowd, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. Maybe, just maybe, this disaster, this chaos, this near-death experience would finally bring us together, would finally make them see me, would finally, well, maybe I was still holding on to that dream, that desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they loved me as much as they loved Emma. I found them near the lifeboats, my parents frantically trying to secure a spot for Emma, their faces etched with worry, their eyes filled with fear. Fear for Emma, of course, not for me. "Mom, Dad!" I yelled, my voice barely audible above the storm, the screams, the chaos. "Help me!" They turned, their eyes widening with surprise, their faces blank. It was like they hadn't even realized I was there, like I was just another piece of the ship's wreckage, another obstacle in their path to saving Emma. "Valeria," my mother said, her voice strained, "get in the boat, quickly!" But there was no room. The lifeboat was full, packed with people, their faces a mixture of fear and relief, their eyes fixed on the churning water below. "There's no room!" I cried, my voice cracking with panic. "Help me!" And then, the moment that would forever be etched in my memory, the moment that would define my relationship with my family, the moment that would, well, let's just say it was the moment that broke my heart. My father looked at me, his eyes filled with Not love, not concern, not even regret. Just a cold, calculating assessment of the situation. He looked at me, he looked at Emma, and he made his choice. He pushed me aside, his hand firm, his grip unforgiving. Emma, darling, he said, his voice steady. Get in the boat. Now. Emma, her eyes wide with fear, but also with a strange sense of entitlement, climbed into the lifeboat, her place secured, her safety guaranteed. The boat lowered, the ropes creaking, the faces of the passengers disappearing into the darkness. And I was left there, on the sinking ship, the waves crashing around me, the water rising, the end inevitable. I screamed, I cried, I begged, but it was no use. They were gone. They'd chosen Emma. They'd left me to drown. And as the water closed over my head, as the darkness enveloped me, as the last vestiges of life slipped away, I felt not fear, not sadness, not even regret, just fury. A burning, raging fury that consumed me, that fueled me, that kept me alive. Even as my body succumbed to the icy depths, if I ever get another chance, I swore, my voice a silent scream in the vastness of the ocean, I'll make them regret this. I'll make them pay. Okay, so imagine this. I wake up, right? But not in my comfy bed, not in some sterile hospital room, not even in that cramped, windowless cabin on the sinking ship. Nope. I wake up on a beach, a freaking beach. White sand, palm trees, crystal clear water, the whole tropical paradise shebang. Except, minus the cocktails, the cabana boys, and the all-you-can-eat buffet. My first thought? Whoa, did I accidentally book a shore excursion? Because seriously, this was not how I envisioned my cruise ending. Then reality kind of smacked me in the face, along with a rogue wave that soaked me from head to toe. The ship, the storm, the sinking, oh God, the drowning. Panic set in, a familiar icy grip around my chest. I scrambled to my feet, my eyes scanning the deserted beach, the dense jungle, the vast, empty ocean. Hello? I called out, my voice trembling. Is anyone there? Mom? Dad? Emma? But the only answer was the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, the rustling of palm leaves in the wind, and the screech of some unseen bird in the distance. I was alone. Completely, utterly, terrifyingly alone. Despair threatened to engulf me, a dark wave of hopelessness that threatened to pull me under. I sank to my knees, my tears mingling with the sand, my sobs lost in the vastness of the island. What was the point? They'd chosen Emma. They'd left me to die. Why bother fighting anymore? But then something shifted. A spark ignited deep inside me, a flicker of defiance that refused to be extinguished. They might have abandoned me, but I wasn't going to abandon myself. I wasn't going to let them win. I wasn't going to let the ocean have the last laugh. I stood up, my legs shaky, my resolve still fragile. But there. I looked around the island, my eyes taking in the lush vegetation, the clear stream, the possibilities. This wasn't the end. This was a new beginning, a chance to prove myself, to survive, to thrive. Okay, so maybe I was channeling some serious Survivor Man vibes, but hey, desperate times call for desperate measures, right? I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs, and a strange sense of calm settled over me. I was alive. I was alone, and I was surprisingly not entirely freaking out. This island, this deserted, forgotten piece of land in the middle of nowhere, was my new reality, and I was going to make the most of it. I was going to survive. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to give up. Not now, not ever. They might have left me to drown, but I was going to show them. I was going to show the world that Valeria Langford was more than just an afterthought, more than just a forgotten daughter, more than just a victim. I was a survivor. And this island, this unexpected, unwanted challenge, was just the beginning of my story. Okay, so survival mode. Turns out it's not as glamorous as it looks on TV. Those survivor contestants make it look all build a fire, catch a fish, win $1 million. Let me tell you, it's not that easy, especially when you're a city girl whose idea of roughing it is a weekend without room service. My first challenge: shelter. I mean, sleeping on the beach under the stars sounds romantic and all, until you realize that stars also means mosquitoes the size of hummingbirds and creepy crawlies that go bump in the night. So I set about building a shelter, armed with nothing but my bare hands, some leftover determination, and a vague memory of a documentary I'd once seen about wilderness survival. Let's just say my first attempt was less than successful. Picture a pile of palm leaves and branches that looked more like a giant bird's nest than a shelter. It collapsed on me in the middle of the night, leaving me exposed to the elements, the mosquitoes, and well, let's just say I didn't get much sleep. Next up, food. I'd always been a picky eater, the no vegetables, extra sauce kind of girl, but suddenly my options were limited to whatever I could find and whatever wouldn't kill me. I tried berries, which turned out to be surprisingly tasty, and thankfully, non-poisonous. I attempted to catch fish, which resulted in more near-drowning experiences than actual catches. And I even resorted to eating bugs, which, let me tell you, is not as crunchy and delicious as it sounds on those survival shows. Then there was the water situation. Turns out, drinking straight from the ocean is not a good idea. Who knew? I learned that the hard way, after a particularly desperate gulp left me feeling more dehydrated and nauseous than ever. So I set about collecting rainwater, using whatever containers I could find: coconut shells, empty bottles, even my own shoes. Don't judge, I was desperate. The island, my supposed tropical paradise, was actually a relentless test of my resilience, my resourcefulness, and my gag reflex. The sun beat down mercilessly, the humidity was suffocating, and the bugs, oh God, the bugs, they were everywhere, biting, stinging, crawling, and generally making my life miserable. I had near-death experiences on a daily basis. I almost fell off a cliff while trying to reach a particularly tempting-looking mango. I almost got bitten by a snake while searching for firewood. And well, let's just say I had a close encounter with a particularly territorial crab that left me with a bruised ego and a newfound respect for crustaceans. But through it all, I kept going. I learned from my mistakes, adapted to my environment, and slowly, painfully started to, well, not exactly thrive, but definitely survive. I built a more stable shelter, using salvage materials from the ship wreckage that washed ashore. I figured out how to build a fire, using the friction method, which, let me tell you, is a lot harder than it looks. And I even managed to catch a fish, using a sharpened stick and a whole lot of patience. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't comfortable. But it was life. My life. The life I was determined to live, despite the odds, despite the challenges, despite the fact that my parents had left me to drown. They might have chosen Emma, but I was choosing myself. And that, I realized, was the most important choice of all. Okay, so survival 2.0. Turns out I'm a surprisingly adaptable creature. Who knew? I mean, I still miss my Netflix binges and my extra large lattes, but I was starting to get the hang of this whole living off the land thing. It was like a weird, extreme version of The Amazing Race. Except instead of exotic locations and annoying teammates, I had a deserted island and, well, myself. My shelter, for instance, evolved from that pathetic pile of leaves to something resembling an actual dwelling. I used salvaged wood from the ship wreckage, along with palm leaves and vines, to build a small but sturdy hut. It wasn't exactly Buckingham Palace, but it kept me dry during the rainstorms and offered some protection from the creepy crawlies. Food became less of a what can I stomach situation and more of a what can I hunt / gather / trick into my makeshift traps kind of deal. I discovered that certain types of seaweed were actually quite tasty if you ignored the slimy texture. I learned how to identify edible plants thanks to a tattered survival guide I'd found in the ship's debris. And I even managed to catch a few fish using a combination of sharpened sticks, woven vines, and sheer determination. Let's just say catch and release wasn't exactly my motto. Tools were another challenge. No Home Depot on this island, unfortunately. But I'm resourceful, remember? I used sharp rocks for cutting, coconut shells for bowls and cups, and even fashioned a makeshift knife out of a piece of broken glass. MacGyver would have been proud. Okay, maybe not proud, but at least mildly impressed. But the biggest transformation wasn't physical, it was mental. I was becoming stronger, more resilient, more it's self-sufficient. I wasn't just surviving, I was adapting, learning, growing. I was facing challenges head on, solving problems with whatever resources I had available, and refusing to let fear or despair get the better of me. I was learning to read the weather patterns, to predict the tides, to understand the rhythm of the island. I was becoming part of the ecosystem, not just a visitor, but a resident, a survivor. The island, once a symbol of my isolation, my abandonment, my everything gone wrong, was now becoming my teacher, my mentor, my home. It was pushing me to my limits, testing my boundaries, and forcing me to discover a strength I never knew I had. I was no longer the pampered, privileged girl who'd been overlooked and underestimated. I was Valeria, the survivor, the resourceful one, the one who could build a shelter, find food, craft tools, and, well, basically kick butt in any survival situation. I was becoming a warrior, a fighter, a force to be reckoned with. And as I looked out at the vast ocean, the endless horizon, the possibilities stretching before me, I knew this was just the beginning. My transformation wasn't complete. It was just evolving, and I was ready for whatever came next. Bring it on, ocean. Bring it on, world. I was Valeria, and I was unstoppable. I was throwing up. That mushroom was definitely not edible. Chapter 7, The Journal. Okay, so the journal. It started as a way to keep track of the days, a dear diary, today I almost got eaten by a giant spider kind of thing. But it became something more. It was my confidant, my therapist, my only friend on that deserted island. I found it in the wreckage, a battered, waterlogged notebook with a few pages still intact. It was a miracle, really, like a message in a bottle, a lifeline from another world, a, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone. I started writing, pouring out my thoughts, my fears, my frustrations, my everything. It was a way to process the trauma, the betrayal, the sheer absurdity of my situation. The journal became my witness, my record of my transformation, my testament to my resilience. It was the story of how I went from a pampered, privileged girl to a survivor, a fighter, a, a warrior. It was the story of how I found my strength, my voice, myself. Okay, so escape. It wasn't a sudden decision, a spur of the moment, I'm out of here kind of thing. It was a gradual realization, a growing conviction that I wasn't meant to stay on that island forever. I'd learned my lessons, I'd faced my fears, I'd become who I was meant to be. And now, it was time to move on. Building the boat was, well, it was an adventure. A challenging, frustrating, occasionally hilarious adventure. I used salvaged wood from the ship, along with vines, leaves, and whatever else I could find. It wasn't exactly a yacht, more like a glorified raft, but it was seaworthy, or so I hoped. I packed my meager belongings, my journal, my makeshift tools, a few precious mementos from the ship, and set sail. It was a terrifying moment, leaving the safety of the island, venturing out into the vast unknown, the endless expanse of the ocean. But it was also exhilarating, liberating, empowering. I was no longer a castaway, a victim, a, a forgotten daughter. I was an explorer, an adventurer, a woman on a mission. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do, but I knew one thing. I was going to find my place in the world. I was going to make my mark. I was going to, I was going to show them all. The ocean was vast, unforgiving, and surprisingly beautiful. The sunrises were breathtaking, the sunsets magical, and the stars, oh God, the stars, they were like diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth, a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. I sailed for days, weeks, I don't even know how long. Time lost all meaning, the days blending into one another. The only constant, the rhythm of the waves, the wind in my hair, the hope in my heart. I wasn't just escaping the island. I was escaping the past, the pain, the the limitations I'd placed on myself. I was sailing towards a new future, a new life, a new me. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in a symphony of colors, I knew I was ready. Okay, so the ocean. Turns out it's not all sunshine and gentle breezes. Who knew? My little makeshift raft, which I'd affectionately nicknamed the Hopeful, was no match for the raw power of the sea. It was like being in a washing machine, only instead of detergent and fabric softener, I had waves the size of houses and winds that could knock a seagull out of the sky. The storms were intense. Think Perfect Storm meets Twister with a dash of Jaws thrown in for good measure. The rain came down in sheets, the wind howled like a banshee, and the waves, well, let's just say I spent most of my time clinging to the hopeful for dear life, praying to whatever sea gods were out there that I wouldn't become fish food. Hunger was a constant companion. My supply of dried seaweed and questionable berries dwindled quickly, leaving me with a rumbling stomach and a growing sense of desperation. I tried to catch fish, but my makeshift fishing skills were, let's just say they needed some work. Mostly, I just ended up with a lot of near misses and a profound respect for the intelligence of fish. Dehydration was even worse. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning my little raft into a floating oven. My lips were cracked, my throat was parched, and my skin felt like it was about to peel off. I rationed my rainwater carefully, each sip a precious commodity, a reminder of how fragile my existence had become. And then there were the sharks. Yep, you read that right. Sharks. Turns out they're not just a figment of Hollywood's imagination. They're real, they're hungry, and they're apparently quite interested in, well, let's just say they were a little too interested in me. I'd spot them circling the hopeful, their fins slicing through the water, their eyes cold and calculating. It was like a scene from a horror movie, except I wasn't watching it from the safety of my couch. I was living it, trapped on a tiny raft in the middle of the vast ocean, with a bunch of hungry sharks as my companions. Days blurred into nights, the relentless sun, the endless waves, the gnawing hunger, the constant fear. It all started to take its toll. My hope dwindled, my strength waned, and my spirit, well, let's just say it was hanging by a thread. I started to hallucinate, seeing things that weren't there, hearing voices that echoed in my mind. I saw my parents, their faces no longer filled with anger or disappointment, but with regret. They apologized, they begged for forgiveness, they told me they loved me. But it was just a hallucination, a cruel trick of my desperate mind. I thought about giving up, letting the ocean have me, surrendering to the inevitable. But then, I'd remember the island, the challenges I'd overcome, the strength I'd discovered within myself, and I'd find a flicker of defiance, a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. And then, just when I was about to give up, when the last vestiges of hope were fading away, when I was sure that the ocean was finally going to claim me, I saw it. A light on the horizon, a faint glimmer in the distance. A ship? I don't know how I found the strength to wave, to shout, to make myself seen, but I did. And they saw me. They saw the tiny raft, the lone figure clinging to life, the survivor. The rescue was a blur. I remember being pulled aboard the ship, wrapped in warm blankets, offered food and water, and finally feeling safe. I was alive. I'd survived. Against all odds, against all expectations, against everything. And as I looked back at the vast ocean, the endless horizon, the challenges I'd faced, I knew I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was something more. I was unbreakable. Okay, so picture this. I'm rescued, right? Pulled aboard this giant ship, wrapped in blankets, given warm soup, the whole 9 yards. I was expecting a quiet return to civilization, maybe a few days of rest and relaxation before I had to face the real world again. Boy, was I wrong. Turns out my little lost at sea, survived against all odds story was kind of a big deal. Like, a really big deal. The ship I was rescued by, it wasn't just any ship, it was a cruise liner, packed with tourists, many of whom had witnessed the sinking of my ship. They'd seen the chaos, the panic, well, The moment my parents chose Emma, and they'd seen me clinging to life, disappearing beneath the waves. So when I was pulled aboard, it wasn't just a rescue, it was a revelation. The girl who survived, they whispered, the daughter who was left behind. The story spread like wildfire, fueled by social media, news outlets, and good old-fashioned gossip. By the time we reached port, well, I was a celebrity. Paparazzi were waiting, news crews were clamoring for interviews, and my phone, which miraculously still worked, was blowing up with messages from everyone. People I knew, people I didn't know, even people I'd actively tried to avoid in high school. Suddenly, everyone was my best friend. The media frenzy was insane. Every news station, every newspaper, every website was running my story. The drowning daughter, the miracle survivor, the girl who defied the ocean. They even had hashtags, #ValeriaStrong, #SurvivorGirl, #NeverGiveUp. I was trending, people, trending. I did interviews, lots of them. I told my story, the real story, the raw, unfiltered version, the sinking ship, the storm, the sharks, the island, the choice my parents made. I didn't hold back, didn't sugarcoat anything. I just told the truth. And the world listened. They were captivated by my story, inspired by my resilience, outraged by my parents' actions. The public opinion turned against them quickly, and they became villains in my narrative. Then came the vlog. My publicist, yes, I suddenly had a publicist, suggested I start a vlog, a way to connect with people, to share my experiences, to control the narrative. It was a brilliant idea. I started filming, sharing the raw details of my survival journey, the highs, the lows, the really gross parts. I showed them my makeshift shelter, my fishing techniques, or lack thereof, my encounters with the local wildlife, including that territorial crab. I shared my journal entries, my thoughts, my fears, my triumphs. People connected with me, with my honesty, my vulnerability, well, my ordinariness. I wasn't some superhero, some superhuman, some mythical creature. I was just Valeria, a girl who'd been through hell and back and who'd come out stronger, more resilient, more herself. My vlog blew up. Millions of people followed me, inspired by my strength, my perseverance, my refusal to give up. They called me a role model, an icon, an inspiration. I was getting fan mail, actual letters, gifts, even marriage proposals, which, let's be honest, were a little creepy. I was no longer the invisible girl, the forgotten daughter, the afterthought. I was Valeria Langford, the survivor, the icon, the legend. And it was kind of surreal. I was invited to talk shows, conferences, even the United Nations. I was meeting celebrities, politicians, and, well, basically everyone who was anyone. My life had gone from 0 to 100 in a matter of weeks. And then, the ultimate moment of poetic justice. My parents saw me on TV. They saw my interviews, they saw my vlog, they saw the truth. The world now knew what they'd done, how they'd chosen Emma over me, how they'd left me to drown, how they'd never even tried to search for me. The internet turned against them. People hated them. They were called monsters, selfish, heartless. The public backlash was swift, brutal, and, well, let's just say they weren't exactly winning any Parent of the Year awards. And me? I didn't say a word to defend them. I didn't need to. The world knew the truth. And they could live with it. Okay, so Hollywood came calling. Not literally, of course, but pretty close. My publicist, who, by the way, was now my best friend and basically the sister I never had, informed me that my story was a hot property, a guaranteed blockbuster, a license to print money. Apparently, everyone wanted a piece of the Valeria Langford pie. Producers, directors, screenwriters, they were all lining up, eager to turn my life into a movie, a TV show, a Broadway musical. Okay, maybe not that last one. But one name stood out from the rest. Lucas Carter. Lucas Carter, the director. The genius, the visionary, The guy who made those gritty, realistic movies that made you think and feel and, well, sometimes want to take a shower afterwards. He wasn't your typical Hollywood type. He was intense, brooding, and a little bit intimidating. He showed up at my apartment not with an entourage of assistants and yes men, but alone, his eyes sharp, his expression skeptical. He didn't gush, didn't flatter, didn't even really smile. He just looked at me like he was trying to see through me, to figure out if I was the real deal or just another media-created myth. So, he said, his voice low, gravelly, "You're Valeria Langford, the girl who survived." "That's me," I said, trying to sound casual, but feeling a little bit flustered. "And you expect me to believe this story?" he asked, his eyes narrowed, his skepticism evident. "It's the truth," I said, my voice firm, my gaze unwavering. "The truth?" he scoffed. "It sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. Too perfect, too unbelievable." "I assure you, it's real," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I lived it." "Prove it," he challenged, his eyes locking with mine. And that's how it started, our complicated relationship. He questioned everything, challenged every detail, pushed me to prove my story, my strength, my authenticity. He wanted the raw truth, the gritty details, the emotional core of my experience. He made me revisit the island, in my memories, in my dreams, in my nightmares. He made me relive the storm, the sinking, the choice my parents made. He made me confront my pain, my anger, my my vulnerability. It was intense, exhausting, and strangely liberating. He wasn't just making a movie. He was helping me heal, helping me understand, helping me become. And somewhere along the way, amidst the challenges, the arguments, the shared passion for the truth, let's just say we started to see each other, not just as director and subject, but as something more. It was complicated, messy, and undeniably exciting. He was everything I wasn't, cynical, skeptical, and a little bit jaded, but he was also brilliant, passionate, and surprisingly kind. And as we worked together, as we delved deeper into my story, as we fell in love, I realized he wasn't just making a movie about my survival. He was making a movie about my rebirth. Okay, so making a movie. It's not as glamorous as it sounds. Sure, there were moments of excitement, like when we filmed the shipwreck scene with a giant replica of the cruise liner and a wave pool that could rival the Pacific Ocean. But mostly, it was long days, endless takes, and a whole lot of waiting around. Lucas, the director, was in his element. He was a perfectionist, a control freak, a, well, a genius. He pushed everyone to their limits, demanding the best, the most authentic, the most emotionally raw performance. Me? I was learning. Acting wasn't exactly my forte, but Lucas saw something in me, a spark, a truthfulness that he wanted to capture on film. He coached me, challenged me, pushed me to basically relive my trauma for the sake of art. It was intense, exhausting, and strangely therapeutic. Our relationship, meanwhile, was evolving. We weren't just director and subject anymore. We were partners in crime, in art, in life. We argued, we debated, let's just say we weren't exactly your typical lovey-dovey couple. But there was a passion there, a connection, a shared understanding that went beyond the movie. The filming took us all over the world. We recreated the island, the storm, the whole damn journey. We filmed in exotic locations, battled unpredictable weather, and even had a few close encounters with the local wildlife, including a particularly amorous monkey who took a liking to Lucas's camera equipment. The movie, as it started to take shape, it was amazing, raw, powerful, and surprisingly emotional. It wasn't just a survival story. It was a story about family, betrayal, resilience, and, let's just say it had a few tearjerker moments. The buzz around the movie was growing, the trailers went viral, the interviews generated headlines, and the premiere? Well, let's just say it was the hottest ticket in town. Everyone wanted to see the story of Valeria Langford, the girl who survived, the daughter who was left behind, the the woman who defied the odds. And as the premiere date approached, as the excitement mounted, as the world held its breath, I realized this wasn't just a movie anymore. It was a movement, a testament to the human spirit, a celebration of resilience, a, a middle finger to all the people who'd ever underestimated me, overlooked me, or, well, left me to drown. Okay, so the premiere. It was insane. Red carpet, flashing lights, screaming fans, the whole Hollywood shebang. I was wearing a designer dress, which, let's be honest, felt a little weird after months of living in rags. My hair and makeup were done by professionals, who somehow managed to make me look human after all that sun and salt water. And I was kind of freaking out. The movie was amazing, even better than I'd imagined. The audience laughed, they cried, they even gasped in all the right places. Lucas, the genius, had captured my story perfectly. The raw emotion, the gritty details, the triumph of the human spirit. And then, it happened. As the credits rolled, as the applause thundered through the theater, I saw them, my parents, standing in the back, their faces a mixture of, well, it was hard to tell. Shame, regret, maybe even a flicker of pride. They approached me, their steps hesitant, their eyes pleading. Valeria, my mother said, her voice trembling. We are, we're so sorry. We made a terrible mistake. Can you ever forgive us? My father, his face etched with years of regret, simply nodded, his eyes filled with, well, let's just say they weren't filled with the usual arrogance and indifference. I looked at them, my parents, the people who'd given me life, but who'd also kind of tried to take it away. I felt a surge of not anger, not resentment, but a kind of sadness. A sadness for the family we could have been, the love we could have shared, the support I'd always craved. But then I remembered the island, the storm, the sharks, the choice they'd made, and I realized I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't need their love. I didn't need them. I don't know, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Maybe someday, but not today. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, their faces etched with, well, let's just say they weren't exactly beaming with joy. The cameras caught it all, of course, the dramatic reunion, the tearful apology, the ultimate rejection. The headlines screamed, the internet exploded, and my parents, well, they became the poster children for parental failure. But that wasn't my focus. I had bigger things to worry about. My career was taking off. My vlog was more popular than ever. And Lucas, well, let's just say our relationship was definitely not boring. I was living my life on my own terms, without apologies, without regrets, without them. And it was amazing. I wasn't just a survivor anymore. I was a success, an inspiration, a force to be reckoned with. And as I looked out at the world, the endless possibilities stretching before me, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The island, the storm, the sharks, the whole damn ordeal. It had all been a test. A test I'd passed with flying colors. And now, I was ready for the next chapter, the next adventure, the next, well, the next everything. Because I was Valeria Langford, and I was unstoppable,